Hello, everybody. You have David Abrams here on another episode of the Demio Discover Show, our show where we actually walk through the journeys of amazing SaaS entrepreneurs and founders, I should say. And I'm joined today by Mike Hardenbrook, who's an absolutely amazing founder. We'll talk about him in just a second. And I also want to say we're joined by my dogs who somehow decide to wake up right as this show is going live. So I do apologize if there's any barking or crazy growling in the background. But again, we have today Mike Hardenbrook on, who I've literally begged for like the past 6 months to come on this show. So we finally got him, and it's so exciting to have him here. He's the co-founder of Growth Geeks, a marketplace for what would you say, growth hackers?
On-demand marketing.
On-demand marketing. And Growth Hacker TV, which is an educational resource for startups to acquire, monetize, and grow a user base. Mike is also a chief strategist at Workify and a mentor at Techstars, which is an awesome honor. That's just amazing. I would love to learn more about that. And so, Mike, thanks so much for joining me and finally getting to jump on the Demio Discover show with me.
For sure. Sorry it's been so delayed. It's awesome to be here. And Dave and I had an awesome conversation on the phone before we tried to set up the first interview, and both went to UVA, Arizona. So bear down.
Bear down. That's right.
Come on.
That's awesome. Alumni network going large there. So that's really cool. But Mike, again, thanks so much for joining me. We'll really concentrate on, you have a lot of stuff going on, and I'm going to concentrate today mostly on Growth Geeks, but I think a lot of the conversation pieces that we're going to have can evolve into a lot of things that you talk about, from being a chief strategist to Growth Hacker TV, or what you're talking about at Techstars. But, just trying to keep it narrow, give us an explanation of Growth Geeks, like how you guys began that journey, what it does, why you made it for that segment, and what's so unique about it that you guys even went after it.
Yeah, totally. So, it's a little bit of a backstory, but it's a pretty decent story. So I'll go ahead and give it, even though I don't love to just sit here and talk about myself. But so back 2012, I was doing it's a random niche, but I was in the dental tourism business, and we inspected offices in Costa Rica, Panama, and with U.S. dentists. And so long story short, like any business, you got to market it. What I ended up being was better than building that business. I ended up being better at marketing. And then I went on to teach a lot of companies how to do marketing. And then I noticed that Bronson had a few courses on Udemy at the time, which I also had. This was back 2011, 2012, which I also had courses on there. And I saw that he was in Florida. So I reached out, we got together, and just had coffee. And we talked about, okay, well, what kind of platform could we build that would help companies start and give the most benefits to them, start growing? Should we do an online accelerator? Should we do a mentoring program? And this was before there were any sites dedicated to growth hacking. It was actually a lesser known term. Only a few people knew about it, probably more in San Francisco. There were a couple blogs that talked about it, like On Startups, HubSpot founder, and Sean Ellis had a couple things, but that was before growth hackers and all that stuff. And we just saw this trend of growth hacking being a wave to catch, and our strongest point was marketing. So we launched Growth Hacker TV. We caught that wave. I would say the reason we got traction is that the biggest growth hack of Growth Hacker TV was the fact that we caught the wave. If you see something coming and you're not too early and you're not too late and you can write it, you'll get traction. So timing is a big thing. The other thing was there were no other platforms like it, and what we did was we behind closed doors did 50 interviews. So by the time that we launched, we already had a solid interview base, and if anybody wanted to copy us, they're like, well, they already have 50. So anyways, long story short, after a couple of years, we got great traction, worked really well. And we served two customer bases. We served the people that wanted to learn marketing and service their customers, which were the agencies. And we serviced startups and businesses that were looking to grow. And what the businesses were telling us was, hey, I love everything I learn on Growth Hacker TV. Where can I find somebody to do it for me? And so what we found was that we had both sides of this scenario, that the agencies that want to do the work and want to learn more, and we had the businesses. So it was a natural transfer to go and start connecting those. And so what we ended up doing was building a software platform that would support those. And we knew that all the other platforms out there, the biggest problem, especially when it comes to marketing, is quality. And so we had to keep quality high, but we wanted to keep prices low that weren't competing or in that people that could afford a normal agency. And so that's sort of where it grew out of one platform, out of the needs of our customer base, and grew into Growth Geeks.
So with Growth Hacker TV, would you say you kind of went the approach of going community first, like trying to build a following and an audience? And did you do that intentionally?
No, so yes and no. Yes, intentionally we built it, but it was not just sheer audience. It's a subscription plan. It's got a monthly. So we were looking at growing revenue and using it as a profit center. So we weren't using it as let's say some other platform that has a community and then they roll it into launching a product where they audience build and figure out what the needs are for those people. It just sort of happened out of accident.
Right. No, it sounds like you guys hit it at the perfect exact time, right? Because like timing is so critical in it. Like you said, if you go early, people don't know what the term, growth hacking is, and they're just, they have no idea. And you have to train the marketplace to win. We had a call, I think 2 weeks ago, where someone was talking about that. They went into a marketplace. No one knew what the words were. It took them forever to like train the marketplace. I think Russell Brunson also had that problem initially with funnels. But it sounds like you guys did it at the right time, and you had the validation there because you had the subscription already in place. You're able to validate Growth Geeks, the community itself, like with your audience already. So knowing that you guys kind of had this viable thing, how did you, when you built this, what did you do with an MVP? Like, what did your initial MVP look like when you came out with this? Were you guys just, hey, connect people one-on-one with messages, just like, here's a guy that you can talk to? Or did you literally go start building out the entire network and the entire software?
Yeah, no. So with marketplaces, it's a little tricky because it's like building two products. You have supply and demand. So we needed to get the supply up. You can go either side at first, but we knew that if we could bring small agencies and freelancers work without having to actually find the clients, that they would sign up. So we took the ones that were already on our list, and what we did was set up a landing page that had a LinkedIn Connect, and we started emailing them one by one, saying, "Hey, this is what we're doing. If you want to get beta access, we can find you more clients. Go here and sign up." And so the reason we did the LinkedIn Connect was it was able to grab their LinkedIn profile picture and any of the testimonial reviews that people have left on their profile, and basically set them up a default profile on our site. And so behind the beta, they were able to get into the system and start listing services. That's where our vetting process would go in. So like anybody would sign up, but then we'd check for, when they post a gig, does this look good? We go on their LinkedIn profile. We're all marketers. We've been doing it over 10 years. So it's pretty easy to sniff out things that don't seem like they're legit. And that was sort of the way it just started MVP wise. And then once we felt like that we had a stable enough of a platform, taking payments and stuff like that and parsing them off is pretty tricky stuff, technically speaking. But once we got all that, messaging systems and things like that, we launched our beta and allowed people to start buying.
Is that where you got your first 100 customers from that beta program? Initial customers already?
Yep. So we got the supply side up first, because if you send customers somewhere where they can't buy anything, at least our strategy was, it makes it hard to make money. And you might be burning through some of those contacts. But we did keep it in beta anyways. Don't worry, man, I got kids. I don't even hear that kind of stuff. So we kept it in beta simply because the psychology is to get into beta. People want to go check it out, right? So we still kept it behind the smoke screen and let people in slowly. And yeah, it was all reaching out by hand to people.
Doing things that don't scale, basically, initially, right?
Initially. So initially we wanted to talk to as many people as we could on both sides of the marketplace. But, we would build lists of prospects and then start emailing them at a much higher rate once we knew people were signing up, people were very interested. Like it was, I'd never seen anything like it. Like I've never had like such a response like, oh, this is so in need and this is awesome. Think about this though. This was like 3 or 4 years ago. So this was like pretty new. Like there are a lot of on-demand platforms that are coming out now and copycatting even us right now. But back then people would look at it and like, oh, this is a cool concept. Yeah.
Right. And so when you felt that you had that initial traction, were you guys starting to double down? And if you were, like, what were the traffic types of the campaigns that you were looking at to double down? If you were like, we have this validated, we know our target segment, what were you guys doing at that point?
So, sort of to take a step back, it sort of went from, all right, we got something here. Like, almost everyone we reach out to, either business or agency, is very interested. And so we thought, all right, do we try and capture the market with the revenues that we have with Growth Hacker TV, or do we think that we can go bigger and possibly raise some funding and try and capture the market completely? So we had an internal conversation about that. We were all bootstrap guys before that. We're not VC or venture kind of guys. And so what we did decide that we were going to go after some funding. So once we validated the idea, we took what we had. I think I want to say we had $17,000 in monthly recurring revenue before we decided we want to go to do the VC or start getting some angel funding. And so actually through Growth Hacker TV, well poised us to raise funding. And the first guy that we raised from was Tucker Max, who was also on Growth Hacker TV, wrote Hope They Serve Beer in Hell and a bunch of other funny books. So he put in his initial investment. He did some intros. We raised a little bit more. And so that's sort of like where we went from a growth standpoint. We changed gears to build a different kind of company so that we could build a more robust product, hire people, do some things that maybe a cash trap business. I love building profitable businesses, but sometimes you open yourself up to risk to somebody that has a bigger bankroll than you to stomp you out real early. And so that's where we moved to, and subsequently went on to Techstars.
So I want to get back into that and talk about what you did with the funding and kind of where you put that into marketing. But I want to ask because we have similar conversations here at Demio, which is, do we stay the bootstrapped route or do we go the funding route? So what did that conversation really entail? I mean, is it more on the equity side, or is it more like where are our goals going to be, and like what do we actually want to have this company do, and what is the speed that we need? Because we all know that bootstrapping means a little bit slower. You're more cash conservative versus when you're funded, you can kind of scale that growth a little bit more, but maybe you lose some of your own independency on what you want to do with the marketing or even the product vision down the road. Like, what did that conversation actually entail and look like?
Sure. It was multi-sided. I would say one would be like, all right, we got something here. We can easily make this into a very comfortable lifestyle business for the three of us. It was at the time Bronson, myself, and his brother Lucas, who does all the tech. He's the developer on the company. Or we can grow this into something much larger than a lifestyle business that would keep us comfortable. We could take the product in different places that we don't even see right now. We can move much faster. We can capture a market because we think we have something bigger than we've ever done here. So it was a matter of, do we think we could grow this thing into 8, 9 figure kind of business by taking funding? Or do we want to just continue the path, have a very profitable business, live pretty comfortably? But sometimes you never know how long those kinds of things will last. Just simply because the market changes, competitors enter, all kinds of different things. When you take funding, you might be able to keep 1 or 2 steps ahead. So your competitor enters, 2 years later, but it's like, hey, I just spent $500,000 and 2 years of my life figuring things out. There's no way that somebody just starting out is going to be able to catch up to you. So those were sort of the conversations, and we just decided, let's go big. And so we went for the initial small round, but we didn't know how much funding we were going to take on.
It just kind of grew after that.
Yeah, it just kind of grew. Well, we took on some initial funding, and then actually in our customer outreach, we got a bunch of lists of startups, and I ended up cold emailing David Cohen, which is one of the founders of Techstars, and he responded and said, "Have you checked out Techstars?" And I was like, "Well, I know of Techstars, but I hadn't considered it." And he goes, "Well, where would you want to go? Which city are you in?" And I said, "Well, we're not in any of the cities for Techstars." He goes, "Well, pick one." So we picked Austin and Chicago, and he introduced us to Chicago. which we went through the whole application. We actually didn't do the regular application process, but we went through a lot of hoops to get into that. It's a very, very competitive, like easier. They say easier to get into Harvard than it is to Techstars vetting process. But we ended up, I think it was, I don't remember, several thousand people apply, and they take 8 companies.
That's crazy.
So then once we went through that program, that's when we locked down how much funding and from who we were going to take.
Awesome. That's amazing. Well, congratulations on first of all going through that. And I know now you do mentoring and stuff there, but let's look back at now that you have the funding in, what were you guys doubling down on as far as marketing? Like, because now you had the funding behind you, now you had the momentum. What do you do with that funding? Because when you go and you're obviously collecting, you probably have a marketing plan in place. Did you keep the same marketing plan in your pitch deck to people, or did you kind of have to change that as you went to market and stuff like that?
So as far as the marketing plan, you tend not to do that in the pitching part, because that stuff can change on a dime. And when you commit to things inside of a pitch deck, you lock yourself into that sort of stuff. So that wasn't in any part of the pitch. But as far as marketing goes, we slant towards outbound. We're sales dogs. We love making sales. So things like paid traffic. We like things like cold email, outreach, strategic partnerships. We do webinars now with Workify. But if we go back to Growth Geeks days, it was really upfront heavy cold email, outbound email, because it just worked and it was next to no cost. People liked it, and so that's not that is finite. It doesn't go on forever. It can for some companies, but it doesn't for us. So paid worked really well. Retargeting worked really well. We've done some podcasting stuff, but really word of mouth started to take off at some point, which I hate using that word, but it really does. And so I mean, that's really where we're at right now. We're very heavy with we haven't talked about it at all, but Workify, we're doing webinar promotions, we're doing joint venture deals, and also cold email with those and outreach to agencies.
Well, let's talk about cold email, because I think that's such a underutilized method, especially if you're doing any internal or outbound sales. It's something that we're going to be looking at here in the next few quarters. But what were you guys doing? How were you guys getting started with cold emailing? Like, what were you testing individual segments? Were you testing fast? Did you know your market? Like, how did you actually get started with the cold email and then find the process that worked?
Yeah. So it actually is, like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but it's more my background because, and all by accident, to be honest. When I did the dental destinations, which was a dental network, it all started with me just doing cold outreach to dental offices abroad, trying to get them signed up to a dental network. That was all trial and error. And then that business worked well. That was a good example of being too early in educating a market. Growth Hacker TV, also same thing. For us to get those 50 people booked, high profile people, you got to have a message that's pretty well poised. So just refining that skill there. And then, hey, if we can reach out to high profile people, why can't we reach out to agencies and companies and startups and see if they're interested in this product? And then just like with Growth Geeks, also we moved on to Workify and added that to the company's portfolio, which just included talking to agencies and them telling us what they really wanted. So the way that it started was not like, hey, we're just going to start doing cold email and selling these people. It was really just like, after sending tens of thousands of emails, it's like, well, that's kind of what we do.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And so, okay, it sounds to me like the message itself is tweaked early on in the process. You're finding your segment, you're tweaking your message. Where are you finding the lists of people to email? Like, that's always a big question for me, is like, are you guys going and buying these lists? Are you doing just like lead gen? And then, I mean, I don't know exactly how you do it.
I mean, there is a multitude of ways of doing it. Early days, we did things, that might not be terms and conditions of some platforms, but there are lots of places where it's a gray area how you collect it. But to be honest, it was overwhelming, the response we got. That was all positive. So we never felt sort of guilty about that. But it's a good question, because it really depends on the business on where you're going to find them. But there are tons of directories with that information. There are just the process of using like a VA or a sales development rep to go out and find hundreds of websites that you can either find their information on the site, or you can contact them. There was that process. There is process of buying lists that you can buy from lead brokers. There's a lot of different ways. For us, it tends to work better with doing the collecting ourselves, but we've done both, and we do both still.
That's awesome.
LinkedIn is also a great resource to find leads on. I mean, they tell you what they do and who they are.
Do reach out? You're just like putting a filter in and you're just reaching out, like, or having a VA reach out to them individually?
Yeah. No, I tend to always do the messaging myself, or at least send for myself. And if they respond, I always do it. But the things like collecting emails can be outsourced, but I would keep a main point person doing the actual sending and responding. You want your main person being the point of contact with your customers. But like, they're cracking down more on LinkedIn, but there's plenty of apps that if you're on a profile, you can grab their email, because they do searches for permutations of their name with the domain that they list as their company domain on their profile.
Got it. Now, yep. As kind of a mentor, do you have a specific type of business that works the best with cold email reach out as a strategy? Or is it just one of those things where when you're talking to a company, you're just looking at like, here's all the different marketing initiatives we can do. Here's the ones that we think are going to be best and to have the fastest traction results. Like, when do you actually dial down? You're like, this is the one that we have. This is the strategy we have to follow. It has to be cold email reach out initially.
No. So yeah, no, good question. And actually it does. It's way more effective for some companies or another. First, it can't be. It has to be a B2B offer. It can't be a consumer offer. You can't market consumer stuff through email. The other thing is how visible are the people? It goes back to the question. Your last question is how visible are the people online? We were selling to startups who they had a smaller budget, so they didn't want to hire agencies. Right? They don't want a full blown retainer every month. So startups are very transparent. They put their email out there. They put it on their Twitter profile, whatever. So that it made sense for that segment of our customer because they're easy to find. Now, if we're talking about, let's say you do marketing to a dentist, right? Yeah, you can find dentists online, and there are a couple places that they might be, but dentists are like old school dudes, right? They're still using their old Hotmail account, like Dr. Berg 54 at Hotmail. And so it's really hard to track down those guys, and then they're probably not checking their email 10 times a day. So just as an example, emails. Yeah, there's definitely like some customer you got to know, is your customer segment, number one, visible online, and can you find them? And number two, are they sort of open and receptive and technologically plugged in enough for email to work also?
Awesome. So I'm going to kind of say that in this way for you guys, everyone listening, is that when you're looking at your target demographic, you have to look at how are we going to reach out to them? When are they going to be approachable? How do we find them? Are they, like Mike said, are they plugged into emails? Are they going to be opening emails? Are they technically savvy enough to even understand what's happening? So this is why really understanding that target segment is so important. When are they having the pain? When can you connect with them? So definitely things to think about. And I think that's super valuable. Once you get the cold email into their inbox and they're opening them, like, what strategy do you do? Are you just getting them on a demo call? Are you just getting them on a one-on-one call? Are you moving them to a video? Like, what do you guys see best? Because, you probably want to split test that 100%, but I don't know if you guys have a strategy that's, build a relationship instantly with a video, or is it better just to push that initial call, or people think it's too salesy? I don't know.
Yeah. So I kind of do all of the above. When one doesn't work, I'll do the other. I tend to hit, with emails, you always don't want to just send one. I tend to send 5 or 7 even over a month's period. And so in some of my emails, I might just say, hey, check out the link. I wanted you to have it as a resource. Very soft sell, very intro on what you do, which tends to be my first one. And then the next one might be asking for a call. Each email, I just make a very simple, specific call to action that can either be answered yes or no, or with a click. Like, is this of interest to you? Would you be interested in setting up a 10-minute call? Click here. Are you in the market for this? And then maybe if you get down, you could even be like, are you the right person to talk to? Depending on how large the organization is. I tend to hit the decision makers, so I don't need to ask that. But that could be depending on if you have multiple managers within a company. But yeah, no, I tend to sales calls tend to work best with cold email, but that doesn't rule you out from doing it because we got tons of tracking. Like that 17, we didn't have a salesperson on the phone at all until after Techstars. So, and we were getting tons of traction. So it absolutely could just be a link. And we weren't sending long sequences or anything. It could be super simple. I mean, we've streamlined it and improved, but we were sending 1 or 2 emails. We weren't doing these long sequences. So obviously, if you're going to be sourcing those leads, you want to get the most out of them. So if I could go back and email all those again, I wish I could, but I can't.
Milk it more. And Nico just said here in chat, built with plus cold email is best. I'm not sure what built with, is that a tool?
Yep. Yeah, so that's actually, I wrote a blog post recently, like last month, on how you can use the combo of built with Hunter. And there's another one called
Hunter. I saw that, yeah.
Or Find Any Email. They're both 2 services. And what you do is, so you can use built with, which will let you target any, it will pull up the URL for any information for any company that is using specific technologies. So let's say they have a MailChimp. This actually is what I used in my example in the blog. They have a MailChimp lead collection on their site. It's been found that they have MailChimp. So you say, built with, I want to search for MailChimp users. And it'll pull up like 100,000, right? It'll give you actually their who is email, which I highly suggest not using. But you will get their URL. And so then you can take their URLs, you take this, whatever huge list of URLs and you plug it into Hunter. Hunter will do their things and it scours the web for a different, I'm not sure their newest algorithm, but I know that, they'll look for things and he mentions in press and other places on the web. And I'm not sure if they're doing different kinds of permutations with emails. I know an email finder is. And then they're running it through a bounce checker also to see if it's deliverable. Yeah. And then it'll spit out. So you just give a list of URLs. It could be from anywhere. Sorry, drinking something fizzy. It's making it hard to talk. Yeah. So you can get, as long as you have a list of URLs, it could be from built with or anywhere, and you plug it into Hunter, it'll spit out emails. So awesome. Yeah, so I love built with. It's a little pricey, but it's certainly, the blog post I showed, I think I got 10,000 leads or 13,000 leads for under a penny a piece.
That's incredible. And you'll have to send me that link and we'll put it in the resources. So if you guys want to come back and read that post, you guys can. And so again, really critical things to think about is understanding your segment audience, who they are, when the pain points, how to get in touch with them. Then you're finding those lead lists. So using tools like Built with, Hunter, then doing your cold email campaigns, fine tuning those campaigns, doing short, sweet emails with a simple call to action, maybe going to a video or replying, doing a follow-up sequence, tweak it over time. The best thing is just action. You can start with 1 to 2 emails. If a full sequence is going to stop you, start with 1 to 2 emails and then to get that motor going and use those leads to really churn out customers. But it sounds like in the B2B marketplace, this is an absolutely incredible marketing strategy to use to just churn in business really cheaply. And you guys control the whole pipeline. You're not dependent on like affiliates and stuff like that, which is, such a dependent marketing strategy. It's no fun to do and like launch with that. So that's incredible. Any other suggestions or strategies on top of that you would add?
No, I think your recap was really good, like overarching synopsis of what you should be doing. But yeah, I teach a lot of this stuff online also. So it's simply is I just want people to get started. Like you said, like if the sequence keeps you from getting started, then just nail that first email.
That's all you have
to do. Really, you got to think of. I'll just throw in one more thing to think about. Just cold email is not that complicated. Most marketing things are not that complicated. If it is, you're probably doing it wrong, to be honest. But you really got to think about. You got to nail the customer. Where are your leads? Are you getting the right customer? Are they the leads that you're wanting to target, and are they quality? The other thing you got to nail is your messaging good? Does it resonate? Are you adding value every single time? Because each email you want to send is, hey, I'm not just checking back, to annoy you. It's, hey, I'm going to add some more value. So if you have 4 or 5 different value adds on your website trying to sell you product, and the first one didn't work, try the second one, and build up on that value. And then the last one would be just a tech solution that delivers the email. You can totally start within Gmail, and then once you start getting traction, some kind of delivery system that will let you see how things are performing, be able to send more than you can send within your inbox, and be able to track everything and improve it. Those are the 3 components.
Any tools you recommend for that last tool?
Yeah, so I like Tout's a good one. There's a new one called Replyify that I've started trying out. It does pretty much very similar things that Tout does, both low-cost things like less than $50 a month. Yeah,
nice. That's awesome. Cool.
There's several of them out there. I mean, it's just a preference on how their UI is. How do you like it? There are other ones, but those are the ones that I tend to use or like. I've tried the other ones, and those are the ones I go with.
Yeah, we used one maybe a year and a half ago. We used one that was pretty good. It like connected with Gmail and Google Sheets. It was pretty cool. But yeah, definitely recommend you guys use one of those tools, because the way Gmail works is it only allows a certain amount of emails to go out or at a certain time. So a lot of these tools protect your Gmail from getting shut down. Yep. And obviously you want to get reply emails, and you want to have a personal, like just like a Google account or something, right? Something professional, not some random emails that you keep creating for free Gmail accounts and stuff like that. But really cool stuff. And I want to kind of switch gears. So marketing strategy, this was really good for you guys as far as B2B, especially with Growth Geeks initially starting. But let's take a look. Actually, I think a lot of things that really help, when you're looking back on the journey, figuring out lessons that helped you, where were somewhere that you guys failed? Like you got funding, you got into Techstars, all these big things. Was there a big learning moment from a big failure that happened along the way that you guys had to just totally pivot or change or anything like that?
Yeah, totally. I think, I don't remember who said it, maybe Reid Hoffman or something like that. Like, no, I don't remember who it is. But basically, like any major successful company, if you haven't had your major pivot or something like that, you're probably not onto the right product right now. So, yeah, we absolutely have, and we still continue to learn and change and tweak. I would say with Growth Geeks, the biggest one came that we assumed more was better. So we started with an open market format, whereas anyone could apply. We would vet them, and if they met our standards, we would let them publish. They would come up with what services and what price points they wanted to sell at. They would submit for approval. We would review it, see if the copy looked good, if the services looked good. And if it did, we would approve it. And so we ended up with thousands of gigs, right? And people loved it. But what we found was more was not better. And in fact, it was sort of 80-20 or even 90-10 of 20% or 10% of all the gigs on the platform were the ones bought, and everything else was just a bunch of noise, right? And most people bought things of the same nature of service, and then also within the same price points. So what we ended up doing was, hey, listen, and the other thing we knew is that we gave everyone the choice to either give one time, which is a off project service, or an ongoing monthly recurring service. And we knew that the holy grail for any business is to build your monthly recurring, and that we needed to focus on growing those gigs, and everything else. I mean, there is a time and a place for one-time projects for sure, and we want to help people the most, but we also know that ongoing projects are going to be more beneficial to our company and theirs. And so what we made the decision is that there really were under 50 different services that got bought, and everything else was noise. So we had to make a tough decision. We got to lop this off. We got to lop these 1,000 gigs off. Just have 50 in the marketplace. We're going to choose the top partners to be behind each gig. We're going to set the price. We're going to write the copy. And everything for the customer is going to be the same on the back end, but we're just going to curate it even higher. And obviously, you can know you got thousands of gigs and other people on the platform, they weren't happy. And it took some balls, to do that. And we all sincerely felt bad because we want to serve everyone. that had gone and taken the time to fill out a gig, but ultimately their gig was just sitting there not being bought anyways. So it was just a perceived sunk cost. There really wasn't. So like that was, I would say, one major pivot or transition. And the end result was our revenues. I can't remember the exact stat, but I think we had like a 40 or 50% lift, like within a month or two.
That's amazing. And just from dialing in on the best part of the product, basically.
Yeah, we rolled out a nicer looking site. We made the purchases easier to see, the reviews easier to see. There were some other things that were updated, but yeah, more or less less was more in this case.
And I think that's a great lesson for a lot of things, especially, initially in your MVP, when you get in there and you start deep diving, always look at what you can dive in on, like the best performing things, because those people felt like their probably ego was slighted a little bit too, like I'm not good enough to be on the platform, but you were really deep diving with people that were adding real value. And so your business was actually helping the marketplace more in that way. And I think that's incredible.
Thanks.
What was the other lesson? Were you going to say another one?
I wasn't, but I can try and come up with one.
No, I didn't know if you had another one.
Actually, I do have another one. And I haven't talked about Workify, but I'll tell you what it was. Another one was, so what we ended up doing is there were tons of those, specifically the freelancers that we were servicing before that we had to remove just to concentrate the offer for the customer. We decided to break out the technology that runs Growth Geeks and give it to any agency, small agency and freelancer that they wanted. And we knew that, behind each gig, they could plug in their workers could communicate with the customer. So they could essentially have the keys to our castle and run it. And that went well. I mean, we had some big players, I won't name them, but we had some big players say, oh, I would love this. We have our customers wanting services all the time, but we don't want to do managed services. And this sort of lets anyone plug in and not actually have to be hands-on and manage the services. Once somebody buys, they're communicating with the customer. So we gave a multitude of we had actually had some good growth in the beginning, but what we found is that it's not every agency or freelancer or aspiring agency's core competency to run a marketplace. A marketplace is tough. You got to bring in the workers, you got to bring in the customers, and even though our technology did all the heavy lifting and the payouts and the messaging and everything like that, at the end of the day, what we found was that people were coming to us and just saying, can we just use your Growth Geeks? Like, can we just use your workers? And so we pivoted from allowing anyone to list any kind of service on their own site. It could be, they could have been selling surfboards or, surfing lessons, whatever. And we moved it to, just managed digital marketing services. We continue to add to it, but really like they get access to a turnkey scenario, white label our platform, and it works a lot better for them. Even though we just wanted everybody to go build whatever they wanted. Right. So that was a learning moment also.
That's a really good one, because I think community or like network effects like that are so freaking hard, because like you said, you have to do both sides. Instead of just marketing one side, you're marketing both sides constantly. And for most people, probably doing it as a white label, like probably side project, it probably just wasn't enough motivation to just drive the traffic on both sides. So it was smart to do that, because that probably boosts your internal revenue too, as they basically white label your services.
Oh yeah. So, well, we were a little bit blinded by our own like, I don't know what you'd say, but that's what we do every day. We run the Growth Geeks. So we just saw it as an everyday thing, thinking that, that's what they wanted to do. And many of them did, but they ran into the fact that it is hard. But yeah, revenues went from, like if we did a webinar, it went from like $30 per registrant, which is really good. Like $20 a registrant is really good. To like over $100 per registrant. So it like tripled, quadrupled our conversions. So, and we're better serving them too. I mean, people are earning real money with the platform now.
That's incredible. That's amazing. And so you're just going to attract the best people and just creating, like, you just kind of up-leveled your own community aspect of that platform.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, man, listen, we're kind of running out of time here, so I want to kind of switch gears and jump over to our Quickfire questions, which are really just some questions I ask you really fast, kind of right in a row. Just think of the first thing that comes off the top of your head and answer them, and we'll just go through them. It's really fun. But let's just jump right in. So how much do you read during the week, Mike?
So now I'm like a book a month, but I used to be a book a week. I don't do. am not in a book reading mode right now.
Mode anymore?
I mean,
Sometimes
it's
you
not
gotta
that I'm
change it
not
up.
motivated. I just feel like I'm doing more. I don't feel like I'm not cocky that I can't learn things. It's just right now I'm focused and I don't need to add more
Yeah.
outside stuff.
No, I think that's good. I think that's good. What's your top book recommendation right now of a book you've read this year, maybe?
I'm reading The Power of Now right now, which is not a
Okay,
business book, and I love it.
I got it over here.
I do the Audible, so it's got that
Oh,
little
okay, nice.
dramatic, his voice and everything, and it's way deeper than I thought. I mean, I have to hit back quite a few times to catch it, but I like that one. It's a good one so far.
Perfect. What would you tell your younger self starting this business?
Ooh.
It's a tough one, right?
I'd say to my younger, starting this business or any business.
I would say any business because you've done so much. You've been doing so much. Any business right now. Any
Okay.
digital marketing business.
I would say that a great idea doesn't necessarily make for a great business. Like I said earlier in the thing, you could be too early to the market. You could be too late to the market. I think the other thing would be, do you enjoy being around the customer? Like, there's a million ways to make money. So pick one that you're going to like over the long term and don't chase the money. And I'm not saying like the cliche, oh, you should do what you're passionate, but at least like being in that space. Like if you're doing like something like I'm servicing pest control people and like you just can't stand to be there or whatever. I don't know. I'm just thinking of something that doesn't seem too desirable. But like, yeah, you can make money, but is that what you want? So I guess I learned in that the business with the dental business, like I was too early. I didn't necessarily it didn't really mesh with my personality. Like I'm an outgoing guy. I like doing mountain biking. Like being in the dental business just didn't make sense for me. And that was an early mistake that I made. Yeah.
No, I think that's fabulous advice because you spend so much time building this business. You spend so much time in it. It's like it is your life. It consumes a lot of your life. And if you're unhappy talking to those people, you're not. And you said passion is like your actual internal passions. But if you're genuinely not happy or passionate about doing the work for that niche, then you'll never go through the hard times or the tough times and push through. So I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
What's one characteristic you've had to discover on your journey so far, this entire journey, that's made you a stronger or better entrepreneur?
The internet's a tough place to do business, so you got to have thick skin. So if somebody writes you about how your product is the worst thing ever on the internet and that they hate you, hit archive and move on because you got 10 other people that love you.
God, I love that.
Or 100.
I love that. It's so true. So true. Best advice you would give someone, and you're a mentor at Techstars, so you already know this. Best advice that you would give someone starting a SaaS company today?
Monthly recurring revenue has to be there. And make sure that your users use it after they buy it. Focus on that too. Churn's hard.
I love that.
It's like pushing a ball up a hill, you know? So don't just focus on the sale, focus also on what happens after the sale.
Love that. One thing you're most looking forward to in technology moving forward?
I subscribe to Peter Diamandis' newsletter, so I love all the stuff around biotech and medical, like Human Longevity Project and Growing Limbs, stuff like that.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Lots of crazy stuff coming in that field. It's absolutely incredible. But that's awesome. And Mike, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show, man. You've given some incredible advice around, first of all, the strategies that you guys did, the reasons why you even went into funding and stuff like that, and just your whole journey there. That's incredible. And then the cold emailing strategy and some of the advice here in the Quickfire questions have been just spot on, man. So I appreciate your time. I really thank you so much. You know, it took me a while to get you on here, and I'm so happy I did because you killed it, man. So thank you so much.
Thanks, man. I had a blast. Really, I did.
All right. Mike, thank you. Everyone that's on the show still, thank you so much, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye.